Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some r/AmIOverReacting for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do so in the comments down below. And without further ado, let's just get right into it. Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code Oz, check out! Impressive method, 7923. Am I overreacting? My sister told me she was thinking about what it would feel like to punch me in my pregnant belly. Now, me and my husband are thinking about not letting her have a relationship with our child. Am I overreacting? Now, there is an update to this one that we will be reading afterwards. My husband, 31 male, and I, 30 female, are currently 7 months pregnant. We decided to have our baby shower back at our hometown so that our family and friends could make it. We arrived 5 days before the shower in order to spend some time with our families. We usually stay at my parents' house, which consists of my parents and my sister, 28 female. Our families have not seen me in about 6 months, and this would be the first time they saw my pregnant belly. The first day we arrived, my parents were joyful and excited to spend time with us and finally see me pregnant and showing. My sister showed up after being out with friends later that night, and as soon as she saw me, she looked disgusted. She slowly walked towards me, making a disgusted face and saying, "Oh my god, I can't believe you look like that." She said hi and proceeded to tell me that on the drive home, she was thinking about how it would feel to punch me in the belly. Deadpan. There was no chuckle after or any sense of it being even remotely a joke. I was in shock and immediately felt unsafe, but tried not to have a visible reaction for my parents' sake. I stood there a couple of minutes while she poked my stomach while making a disgusted look and just felt incredibly uncomfortable and on guard for any sudden movements. I then excused myself and said I was going to sleep. Throughout the following days leading up to the shower, I avoided her and shared what happened with my husband and parents who had overheard the conversation but hadn't quite grasped exactly what she had said to me. They were all concerned, and my mom spoke to her friend that happens to be a therapist. This therapist friend told my mom that what my sister said was extremely concerning and needed to be addressed. When my parents addressed it with her, she blamed her anxiety and depression and told them that my husband and I have everything and now we're having a baby and she has nothing to live for. She said all she does is go to work and sleep. For background, she's been going to therapy and on depression and anxiety medication for about 10 years. She's been extremely rude and selfish her entire life, and this isn't the first time she says that she's had suicidal thoughts. During my college years, I moved out of my parents' house and she blamed her depression on me leaving the house for leaving her behind and threatened my parents with suicidal comments. Throughout the years, she's made my parents feel like I need to be responsible for her mental health and happiness. It comes off to me and other family members like she manipulates my parents into doing everything for her because of her depression. After the baby shower and some long conversations between my husband and I, we're trying to unpack it all. We're considering not allowing her to have contact with our daughter once she's born. We assume she doesn't even want to make any effort to build a relationship with our child anyways. Are we overreacting? So before we wander on over into the update, I just want to say 2 things. 1, using your anxiety and depression as a crutch to excuse your actions is not okay. There is a massive difference between blaming your actions on your depression and anxiety and saying something like, "Hey, yesterday was a really rough day for me and I'm sorry, but my depression and anxiety got the best of me and my actions were inexcusable." The difference between the 2 of these is that in one of them, you're using your anxiety and depression to excuse your actions, while in the other, you are using them to explain your actions, but personally, taking accountability for what you've done. As someone who does have depression and anxiety, that is a massive pet peeve of mine. And for the other half of this, yeah, I actually really do think that you are underreacting in this scenario, or if not, properly reacting in this scenario. It's one thing if it'd be a really inappropriate joke and still just telling your sister, "Hey, that joke really made me uncomfortable because you joked about killing my child," compared to your sister just deadpan telling you, "Hey, I want to kill your child and see what it feels like," with no explanation for that comment, and then going off to say, "Yeah, but it's fine because you lived a more privileged life than me." That's insane. And now let's take a look at that update. So I definitely think I underreacted and have just been desensitized to her nasty comments, manipulative actions, rude behavior, and just overall attitude. I'd like to address those saying that I should have done more in the moment. Yeah, I should have. But it's easy to see that when thinking back on it, or when, like you, I'm sitting behind a screen reading this situation and what you think you would have done. It's another thing entirely when it's actually happening to you in the moment. For those saying that my parents are coddling her, yes, they are. However, I think most parents that are being told by their child that they're suicidal would probably try to keep that from happening in any way they can. And I agree. My parents need to seek therapy to help them understand how to better handle her. My sister is an adult and they can't just reach out to her therapist. Her therapy is virtual and they have no contact information for them. Regarding those wondering what she's been diagnosed with, all I know is the anxiety and depression. My husband and I have speculated about her being narcissistic and having a personality disorder like borderline, but we don't think she's been diagnosed, and if she has, she hasn't shared that with us. I also think therapy is what you make of it, and there's no way to know what exactly she shares with her therapist. Like I said, she's an adult, and some of the suggestions in the comments aren't taking that into consideration. For those suggesting she gets a psych evaluation, how does one go about getting one of those? I mean, without having the cops called or forcing her to go to the hospital and getting her involuntarily hospitalized, is there a less traumatic way of requesting a psych evaluation be performed, assuming she'd be willing? For those suggesting my parents kick her out, they are never going to do that. If she were to ever kill herself, they would feel completely responsible, as probably any parent would. So whether or not she's manipulating anyone, it's still just a fact that no one is willing to take that risk with their own child. I would also like to point out that even before this incident, my husband and I had already agreed that we would never have her watch our child or be responsible in any way for their care, since we both agreed that she probably wouldn't want to and neither of us would feel comfortable with that. We also agreed that we weren't going to stay at my parents' house when we came to town to visit after our kid is born because it'd just be uncomfortable. Lack of space. For those concerned about me still being around her, the baby shower is now done and over with, and we're safely back at home, very far away, and there's no way of her being around me. Thank you for all those who wish me well, your thoughts are appreciated. For those saying this is a fake post, all I have to say is I really wish it was. Mental Bird 555. Am I overreacting that my partner keeps getting so drunk he wets the bed? I'm honestly at a complete loss right now. We've been together for 3 years and he definitely struggles with alcohol addiction. He's now started wetting the bed when he gets too drunk, and I feel like I'm nearing my limits at this point with his alcohol consumption and what it does to our lives. He went to a wedding last night, and I opted not to go because I don't want to be around him when he's partying. I let him borrow my camper that I had just bought a brand new mattress for so he could spend the night there. I've also been planning on selling the mattress because it's not quite the right size. Anyways, this morning, I discovered that he had pissed all over the mattress last night. I was obviously upset, and the first thing he says was, "Hello, honey, nice to see you too," which honestly feels manipulative to me. Like, you just ruined my brand new mattress, of course I'm upset. Then, when I told him that I was disappointed, he yelled at me and told me he's disappointed in himself, so why would he want to hear that from me? Am I overreacting here? Is it wrong for me to be upset with him? So let's start with laying an unfortunate foundation. If he's at a point in his life where he is actively pissing the bed, and that is not a wake-up call for him to lessen his drinking, there is probably not a damn thing you can do in the relationship to get him to stop drinking. And as shitty as it is to say, he's not your responsibility. You've got to put you first, and not everyone's in a position where they can just up and leave a relationship. If you can put your ducks in a row and do that, that should be what you're doing in this position, is you should be leaving him. But if you can't, you need to set some hard boundaries immediately, and probably start with having him replace the mattress. At the end, all I can really say is good luck and make sure you put yourself first. Hug One Corn. Am I overreacting for telling my husband I won't eat out with his parents anymore? I, 29 female, and my husband, 34 male, have been together for 11 years. I know my in-laws well at this point. We don't see them often because they're out of state. Background. I have a history of disordered eating and bulimia. I'm much better now, I've been in therapy for years, but I do still get triggered from time to time. The problem is every time my husband and I go out to eat with mother-in-law. She's always saying weird stuff and commenting about the size of everyone's plate and how much they're eating. She's constantly talking about counting calories. When the food comes, she immediately asks for a box and packs up 1/2 to 3/4 of her meal and encourages everyone else to do the same. "What a huge sandwich! I could never eat that much," is one of her favorite comments. Not only that, but her and father-in-law are rude to waitstaff, and it's really embarrassing for me and my husband. We both worked in the service industry, so maybe we just have a better handle on how to treat people, but Mother-in-law sends her food back at least once every time we eat out. Mother-in-law likes to brag about how she put my husband on a secret diet as a kid. I think it's super weird, and I've seen the way her eating disorder has affected my husband over the years. After our last restaurant experience with them, I told my husband I think it's too much, and I just prefer that we all make something at home if this is going to continue. He agreed, but did admit that it would be hard to explain to mother-in-law and father-in-law. Am I overreacting? I just don't want to feel the urge to fall back into my eating disorder every time they come around. Edit. Wow, I really appreciate everyone's support. It's easy to talk yourself into letting bad behavior go when you're just trying to make something work. Thank you everyone for making me feel less alone in this. Second, I want to clarify that my husband is 100% on board and fully aware of mother-in-law's toxic behavior. He understands how important it is to set boundaries with her, and he actually does, which I am proud of him for. Again, you gotta put you first. That's what's important here. You are actively putting yourself at risk by going out to dinner with them, and honestly, probably just having them around in general. There is nothing wrong with you putting yourself first in this situation. The easiest way you might be able to convince them is just by pulling the "it's healthier and better for us" card, because if the mother-in-law seems to be very calorie counting, chances are she's probably also health conscious. So that might be your best bet. Because you can't pull the finance card of saying we don't have the finances for it, because then they might just offer to pay for it, and then you knock out any other opportunity you have, because then it's clear you're making an excuse. So don't pull the finances card. Being direct and upfront might cause confrontation and sour things, or could lead to other escalations, so you can't usually go with that. So in my eyes, I think taking the health-conscious route is probably your best way to convince the mother-in-law that eating at home is the better option, if that's actually what you want. You could also just cold turkey cut off having dinners and foods with them and reserve it to just family gatherings. I mean, that's also an option as well, because chances are if you cook at home, you're still going to have the same problems, just at least she's not going to be an asshole to waitstaff, which is pretty fucking embarrassing. You could also just bite the bullet and have a direct conversation about everything and see what happens, but that could either go horribly wrong, or it could actually open the door to improving the relationship with the mother-in-law. I don't know, I'd be curious to see what y'all have to say in the comments on this one, because I don't think going no contact is an answer here. This one is interesting because it's one that I've been wanting to have for a long time. We get both perspectives of this story, from both the husband and the wife. I'm looking forward to this. Am I overreacting for getting upset when my wife had another man in the delivery room? Last month, I'm 28 male, my wife, 25 female, called me in a frenzy telling me that her water broke and that she was going into labor. This was incredibly shocking to both of us because she was still early on in the pregnancy. My problem with this is that I was already on the road, about 30 minutes away tending to my mother, who had just called me to tell me that she was in an accident. Not a significant one, but it still shook her up. I told my wife to call an ambulance because I would not be turning around to drive her to the hospital and witness her birth. What the fuck? She yelled, cursed, cried, and screamed at me through the phone while I tried to calm her by telling her to call my sister if she didn't want to call an ambulance, since my sister lives only 20 to 25 minutes away. After this, she went silent and hung up, and I didn't hear from her for about an hour and a half after the call. I checked my phone for the first time since getting to my mother, and my sister sent me a video of my wife actively giving birth while holding her male friend's hand the way women squeeze their husband's hand for comfort during labor. My sister immediately followed up the video with a text that said, "When are you going to get here?" I ignored this text and asked her if she's the one who drove my wife to the hospital, and she responded no. I asked her who did, and she informed me that it was my wife's male friend, who lives only 10 minutes away, who drove her and was getting his hand squeezed by my wife. I ended up just asking my sister for the full story while I drove my mother back to her home since everything was sorted out with the accident. Long story short, instead of calling my sister or an ambulance, my wife called her male friend that I've always unliked, but never informed my wife. I told my sister to get on FaceTime with me, but not to make it obvious to anyone else in the delivery room, and I would stay silent on the other end. During the call, I saw my wife's male friend rubbing her back, wiping her tears, comforting her when she screamed and cried, etc. I couldn't bear the sight, and I ended the FaceTime and told my sister to inform my wife that I would be at the hospital the next day after work whenever she got out of labor. My sister called almost 2 hours later to tell me she had left the hospital and that my wife would be staying the night. The next day, around 3 to 4 p.m. Oh my god. No, you did not. The next day, around 3 to 4 p.m., when I went over to the hospital to see my wife and newborn son, she was not trying to hide her anger and saltiness from anyone in the room. That included mostly my family and some of hers. When I asked her why she was acting this way, she rolled her eyes and told me to leave her the fuck alone, in front of everyone. Later, when I tried to hold my son, she snatched him from my hands. In this hospital, visiting hours ended at 8, but all of the guests, excluding me, left by 6. When we were alone, I finally got the chance to have a conversation with her about why she's being so salty on a memorable day that should have been filled with love and joy. She responded by getting angry and mumbling something about my audacity to miss her birth and be surprised that she's angry. I'm not proud of this, but in response, I called her a cheater for inviting another man into the living room in place of her husband. She did invite you, you fucking idiot! This spiraled into a short, full-blown argument between us that eventually ended when an NICU nurse came back with the baby. I shouldn't be laughing at this, but this is deranged. It's been a month since then, and my wife only refers to our son as her son, her baby, etc. I've tried to get closer to her by sitting down and trying to have a deep conversation about our family's future, and she flat out told me that she was never having another child with me after what happened, which deeply hurt me. Last week, I heard my wife on the phone talking about who would be godfathers and mothers to our son. She told whoever was on the other end that she would be choosing the male friend as godfather because he was there for me when my name couldn't care less. This post is all over the place, but let me know if I overreacted in the argument when I saw her in the delivery room after she gave birth, or if anyone knows how to fix my marriage and family. Edit, no, this isn't rage bait. I genuinely need advice. Sorry if the wording made it seem that way. I also didn't know the accident was minor until I arrived, and everyone suggesting we get a divorce doesn't know the meaning and dedication of marriage and family. If you have questions, please message me if you want me to answer. Okay. Let's just give you full benefit of the doubt with your mother having an accident and you just having to rely on other people to help you with your wife. I could understand that. It is shitty, but at least it's understandable you wanting to make sure that your mother is okay while your wife was giving birth. What is unfucking fathomable is you going home, going to bed, going to work, and then seeing your wife after she gave birth. And you had the fucking audacity to yell at her for relying on someone else? You couldn't even be there, after the accident was over. It is so laughable how dense you are during this. I could barely contain it. Hell, I couldn't contain it. Dude, there is no recovery from this. If you had maybe shown up afterwards, yeah, there would be some tension, but at least it would be understandable. But you waited almost a full 24 hours before checking in with your wife, and then you were mad at her because she had to rely on other people because you couldn't be damned. Of course it's her child. You don't give a shit. Anyways, let's see the wife's point of view. Update. Am I overreacting for getting upset at my wife for having another man in the delivery room? I'm the wife from that post, lol. A friend found it and sent it to me. Still don't get why he didn't post it on a burner account. Anyway, I decided to make an account to respond, clear some things up, and tell my side of the story as briefly as I can. Yes, I did call my husband to tell him that my water broke, and he did tell me that he wouldn't make it and to call an ambulance or his sister, who has called me a slur to my face before, so I don't know why he thought this would be a good idea. I did not call his sister because we don't get along, and I have a friend that lives closer to us. He ends up driving me to the hospital, and his sister pulls in the lot almost right after us. Don't know how she knew I was going, so now I'm in pain, scared, upset at my husband, and have someone I don't like with me during my most vulnerable moments. I was holding my male friend's hand because why wouldn't I be? Now, it was very obvious that sister-in-law was recording me in some way because she was basically isolating herself from everyone else in the room with her phone to her chest and pointing at me. I didn't think that she was on FaceTime with anyone, I just thought she was filming me. Which is equally as weird. I'm not sure why I brushed it off or didn't ask about it when I was more stable. My husband did in fact show up the next day around 4 p.m. and tried to act like nothing happened, and I was very moody and rude to him, which was probably very immature of me. No, you're fine. This later broke out into an argument after everyone left where he called me a cheater and I also said some very nasty things. and you were justified. I've been isolating me and my son away from him as much as I can and trying to be less dependent on him in some aspects. The reason for this is because I feel that I can't trust him to keep my son safe or change his diaper or pour my breast milk into a bottle and feed him or burp him or basically do anything for my son at all. It is true that I and my son are financially dependent on my husband like he has stated before, and because of this fact, I cannot divorce him. Not now at least, because I do not have any support system or family that lives near us to help me and my son, and I'm still in school. I know staying for the kids isn't healthy, but my family has recommended for me to stay for the sake of my schooling and my son's happiness. My husband had stated multiple times that he had apologized, but these, quote, apologies were just along the lines of, "I'm sorry, will you stop being angry now?" No, I am not sleeping with a male friend. We've been friends since 2nd grade, and there's never been anything romantic or sexual between us. Please don't mind my spelling or grammar. English is my first language, nor am I from an English-speaking country, and this was also rushed. Your grammar is better than your husband's. Feel free to ask any questions because I tend to leave details out. This whole thing feels as unrealistic as it sounds. Also, a nurse never came back with the baby after the argument. That's not even how it works. I would say in this situation, couples counseling is your best bet because your husband did fundamentally erode your trust and you have every right to not trust him to take care of the child. And the fact that he doesn't understand what he did is very concerning. Again, it is one thing to check on his mother and then go to the hospital right after and be apologetic and to be there for you and support you. It is an entirely different gamble, with a fucking paradox billiards, Russian roulette, 4th dimensional hypercube chess strip poker moment for him to just simply not show up, go to work, and then show up at 4 p.m. and act like nothing happened. What kind of gambit is that? You have every right to be mad at him. Bleep blorp, and that's their username. Am I overreacting when I refuse to say please when a customer demanded it because I found it creepy? I, 20 female, work in a retail job where I have multiple responsibilities and am required to be nice to customers. Over the 4 years I worked there, I've had multiple instances when customers try to flirt with me, ask me out, or are just inappropriate. So I've grown a shiny spine towards men's advances and have a sixth sense to their bullshit. This specific instance includes a regular in his mid-40s to early 50s who came into my line to buy a case of beer. I begun the transaction by asking him if he can show his ID. Because our store policy required all customers to show a valid ID before they can purchase alcohol. He knew of the store policy, but proceeds to play a weird game of, "I'm not showing you my ID unless you say please," with a grin plastered on his face. This caused me to be stunned for a second, with my immediate response being that I need the ID if he wants to buy beer. The dude then goes on to say that he wanted me to ask him nicely, which led me to refuse and say that I can just stop the sale. Reluctantly, he shows me his ID while stating that he was trying to teach me manners, and sticks his middle finger out as he hands me the money. Sounds like he needs some manners as well. I had a similar situation to this happen to me before, leading to me to think that men are demanding me to say please have some sort of fetish or need to express dominance. Overall, I find learning manners from a middle age I don't know to be creepy and gross. So Reddit, did I overreact? Edit 1. Hey guys, thank you for all your replies. I know manners can be a polarizing subject for people, especially in situations of customer service. I appreciate your guys' advice about adding please to my question. It just became a force of habit to say, "Can you show me your ID?" I got a lot I gotta say on this in a bit. Because I was taught that please was used during an optional request, and usually people that are buying one item just want to leave the store quickly. I prefer to instead say thank you, as even during this one, I said it to him twice for his ID and shopping, though he may have thought I was making fun of him. A very cute version of the shrug emote. In the case of my management, they're really good about having my back on these things, especially in customer interactions. I'm pretty good about de-escalating situations and am one of the few native English speakers and don't take things to heart. Also, I have other skills that make up for some of my shortfalls. Thank you for sharing your words of wisdom, stories, and even your troll comments because they still give me a laugh. I'm kind of scared to actually go down and read what some of the comments are saying, but my 2 cents is that as a guy, if I was working the cash register, no one would ever ask me to say please to them. Unless it was like a little old lady, that might be a different circumstance. But no one would ever ask me to add a please to my question. This is entirely a female issue where, I mean, as they stated, I don't know if it's a fetish thing, but it could be like a dominance assertion thing or just a guy being creepy and liking it when younger women tell him please. But still, I know for a damn fact that as a guy, no one would ever say this to me. Especially because this so-called paragon of manners who was requesting them to say please to teach them a lesson used the middle finger after he was denied. To me, this sounds like someone who isn't very well versed in manners in my opinion. I decided to have some fun and sort by controversial, and a lot of the comments that are being downvoted to oblivion are usually ones that are stating like, it's not that hard to say please, and I don't think that's the problem here. I think the problem is the fact that a male cashier isn't going to have the same interaction as a female cashier. Yeah, sure, please might make things a little bit easier, but that's not the point of this here. And keep in mind before you go scurrying to the comments to disagree with me, he did flip her off after the request was denied. I don't think the point of this post is whether or not it's proper etiquette to say please or thank you while working in the service industry. I think the point of this post is the fact that she encountered a customer who she found creepy that she refused to say please to. Hell, when I was working in the service industry, it was really damn common for me to leave the back when I was on grill or cooking or doing stock and inventory and run the register because one of the girls up front was really creeped out by a customer, so I posted up there and just had them do some menial task that, I was going to do anyways while I dealt with the problem, which normally was just standing in place and, being the twink up front. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget this whole thing is basically brought to you by GamerSupps. If you like caffeine, then I can't recommend GamerSupps enough. Use code OZ at checkout to support the channel. And I do actually use this product. It's replaced all other sources of caffeine for me because I feel good. It doesn't have any of that extra stuff that a pre-workout blend might have. It's with a couple of the extra things to make it so you don't crash as hard. It's good. I like it. Personally, if you really want a good flavor, try the Soda Pressing Pear or even the Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are my personal favorites right now.